Hey honey, I'm just going to go through this video just to give you some highlights of just different things I've learned doing this assignment. So, first of all, or these assignments, I should say, first of all, you always have to import sys, and that's so that you can use this notation here. So, when I first started, I was completely lost. I didn't know how you were supposed to do this, but I've learned over time that if a few things. One, you're almost always going to define your function, and then what you'll do is, if your function has one argument, you'll want to make sure that this argument matches the variable that you set the argv to. So this here, sys, so it's using sys and then argv, and if um, your function only takes one argument, then you use one, and you don't use zero. It's and if your function takes two arguments, let's just say name and value, then what you would, I mean, there are different ways you could do it, but then you would, the way I do it is I just say, okay, and value equals argv2. And then these correspond with what, in order to run the function, you then have to go into the terminal here. You could do it in the terminal application, but it's just easier just to use the terminal that you can access in Atom. And you're always going to type Python 3 and then the name of your file. So this would be luke.py. And then if your function has two arguments, you would put the two arguments in here. So I'm going to delete this and delete this. And so then to test this, I would just say Python 3, and I have to actually type this because I could use the up arrow if I'm just wanting to tweak something that I just entered, but that was for a different file. So I'm going to, you want to make sure you save. And now I can test this with, if I type in Leah, it will say, Luke, I am your sister. And that matches. Now, if I type in Ray, then, oh, Ray isn't found. I wonder if I change something. Huh. Because it passed. Let me type in Han. Oh gosh. This is. I think I might have messed something up here. Let's see. That is very weird. It isn't here. Oh my gosh. And what a dork. I just typed in Ray and Han. I have to type in the whole thing. I've done this before. Okay, here we go. I mean, I've made this mistake before. Okay, Luke, I am your Padawan, so that's good. But then, if you entered Darth Vader, they wanted an error message. No, I am your father. So here's something I learned the hard way. Watch what happens if I put in Darth Vader. I get an error. So if you have a space, and I didn't know this, but you have to use quotation marks. And now if I do this, like this took me so long to figure out. So if you're running something with space, you have to wrap it in quotation marks. Okay, so, and then the other thing to note is that, first you're creating the function and this is the argument. Then you want to set that argument to the sys.argv, 1. And then as the final step, you call the function and you type in the argument again. So you will see that this matches this. Okay, let me see another one. This also has one argument, but you can see here I have value, value, value. Now, in this one, I thought about like transforming this into a list comprehension, but it was just a little too thick and chewy. But I will show an example of where I used a list comprehension. So in the examples that I found, they typically used for loops, even when you could use a list comprehension. But actually, I want to show something else first, so I don't forget. So in this case, I actually, in early on, set the argv value to start and the second value to end. But I'm also not, I didn't create a custom function, and it still worked. I just ran it. Yeah, don't worry about that. But, let me show you F strings. So a lot of these, this code, let me type in president. One of the things I would do is just preview the code. I typically have 2 files, and so you can see, like, these people took very different approaches to writing their code. But typically, a lot of these will, let me open this one. A lot of these will use this old style of formatting, and I address this in the Python document. So there was this evolution of formatting strings in Python 2. You use this piping, and this is good to know. Like, it talks about it in this class. It's good to know because you'll come across old code that uses this, and but it's really, really ugly. You'll just see like this, this is called piping, and yeah, I don't like it at all. But then Python 3, that uses piping, but the way that they did it is like they left this blank, like you use these curly braces, but then you leave them blank, like empty, and then you use a dot and then format and then reference the variable. And so you'll see this quite a bit. And if you have more than one variable, they'll just put the index of the variable inside the curly braces. So my favorite team is and I'm going to grab the name of the city and then the name of the team. So my favorite team is the Philadelphia Phillies. And then you can like format like space, like the number of decimals and stuff like that. And that's what a lot of this code uses. So this, you see, these are empty. Now the only time, like it, how do I explain this? So in this case, there are three different arguments, or no, I'm sorry, three different variables. But if you reference them in order, like start, then stop, then average height, then you don't have to put in the index. You don't have to put in 0, 1, 2. It will be assumed. But I find this format like just very off-putting. This one here just adds in that for average height, we want 2 decimals, even if it's like .00. So you just like add in this colon, and that lets it know that, what comes after it will specify some kind of special formatting. And the .2f, if we wanted 3 decimals, then it would be .3f. So this is the piping for Python 3, but then Python rolled out f strings, and these are my favorite. They're so clean because inside the print function, all you have to do is just put an f. It can be lowercase or uppercase, but if you use uppercase, you're going to look like a dork and people are going to steal your lunch money. So all the cool kids use lowercase f. And then you just put everything in quotation marks. But the nice thing is you just reference the variables inside the curly braces. So here it's just my favorite team is the Philadelphia Phillies. And, you would have, like, for all of these examples, before all of the code, I had, city equals Philadelphia and team equals Phillies. And so that's how I can reference it. But, otherwise you would have it like, let's see. You would have it like this, like city equals Philadelphia, team equals Phillies. And then when you reference it here, and so you're always putting variables inside the curly braces, and it's just so elegant. So then you can also like specify spacing and things like that. But then I have like all of these common tasks that you might want to do with your f strings. Like, for example, let's say you want to add, you want team to be in uppercase. Then inside the curly braces, you would have team.upper, and that's, just a method inside of Python. And if you want to specify the decimal places, then you would just put the name of the variable colon .2f. And if you want to truncate, then you just, let it know how many spaces. I mean, that's weird. No one's going to do that. But one thing that you can do is you can also run functions inside the variable. So let me see. Oh, yeah. So I wanted to print the type of the array because, well, that was a part of the assignment. And so this is a function inside Python, and you just run it inside your curly braces. So if I like zoom in here, you can see these are the curly braces, and this is the variable that I have defined here, but I want to run the type. You can also do like math inside the inside the curly braces. I mean, it's really, really sophisticated. But like I said, a lot of old coders are used to this format. And so what I'll do, like if I come across code that's in this format, I'll just take each of the variables and just drop them into the empty curly braces. I'll just type it in. Stop. And average height. And then delete this. And then I just really don't like quotation marks. So, again, it is weird because most R programmers use the regular quotation marks and the double quotation marks, and most Python programmers use single quotes. So, and Greg even mentioned that once, that he's just so, because he works more in R, he's so used to using double quotes. But single quotes are more elegant. The one time that you would want to use double quotes, possibly, is let's say you had an apostrophe. Now that's going to break our string. The strings are always green in Atom, unless you use a different theme. But you can always escape it, and then that will also work. So I think, let me double check that. All right, I'm just going to say Python 3 presidents.py. I think it's presidents. Yeah. And I think this takes yeah, I'll just do 4 and 8. Oh, I don't think maybe I didn't save it. Why? Oh, because I didn't, this is in a different folder. So I can't with this, and I'll escape it. Let me show you why this wouldn't work. If I save as, I see, oh, okay, this is in my downloads folder, and I'm working out of, excuse me, this folder here, this Python folder. And that's where my Eastern virtual environment is. So, let me try this again. Come on. That didn't work. So let me try. Oh, here's another cool tip. So let's say you want to wrap all of this in quotation marks. You just select it and then type in your quotation marks. And that works with anything that you want to wrap. So let me see about this. Why isn't this working? It's weird. It's processing the 4 and the 8. Oh my gosh, I see what I did wrong. I've done this before. I just don't have the end parenthesis. Let me try this again. Ah, okay. So that worked. I was just working with the wrong files. Ah. Yeah, because some of these files I have in my downloads folder, and then the one that I turn in is up in my Eastern folder. Now, let me see if I can get this to work with a single quote. So I'm just going to select all this, wrap it in single quotes, hit save. Yeah, so you can use you can use single quotes. You just have to escape um, a, an apostrophe. Alternatively, you can use double quotes. So if I select all of this and enter a double quote and hit save, yeah, then that works. So I'll need to delete this. There we go. All right. So that's how F strings work. You can see here again inside the curly braces, I'm running a function on heights. So I define heights as like you take the heights column of this file and and grab rows, whatever someone puts as the first argument and until the second argument, because you're grabbing a slice. So if I say like 4 to 8, like I did down here, it's not going to count the this top row. It's going to start here. So that's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And to row 7, because slicing isn't inclusive. So if I put 4 and 8, it's going to count this one, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so it's going to take those heights and calculate the average, which is 176.75. You see that down here, and you see 176.75. So that's what that is doing. Let me see if there's anything else here. You can see this function has 2 parameters. So again, this is just a like a check that I always do. Like this first parameter will match this first input. The second parameter, needs to match the variable for this second input. And then when you call it, you're going to again use those same parameters. So these will match your variables, and when you call it, you'll use the same thing. I'm just going to kind of like look through these and see if there are any gotchas. Here you can see I took um, the code that I found, cleaned it up, and used f strings. Now this was interesting. This took me a lot of tries and a lot of searching. So for this particular function, uh, if your if the number was like smaller than the number that I don't know that worked, then um, they wanted your code to not just fail. Like you shouldn't get an error, and I knew that you use this try and accept notation, but I didn't know if, like, I saw examples where someone defined the function and then they set up the try and accept outside the function. That didn't work for me, so I tried this and this worked. And so the what you do is you put your actual function inside try. So you just have to indent everything. Originally, it looked like, oops, and I like using extra spaces. I just think it's clean. So originally my function looked like this, and it didn't have this. And this ran, but then if you used a number outside the range, then you got an index error. And so, um, I'm glad that I kind of boarded the struggle bus for this one, because I will use this in the future, and I'm going to add this to the Google Doc. In fact, I'm going to put this at the end so I don't forget, because that's really, really good to know. And then again, once again, this function has 3 arguments, and you see them here, and then you see them inside the actual function, and then I set each of the inputs um, to the same, using the same name. Okay. Again, I really try to avoid for loops as much as possible, but oh yeah, I'm going to show you an example of a list comprehension, and I was really proud of this one. Um, okay, yeah, this one here. So this was a for loop in the code that I grabbed it from. I think, is this cap count? Yeah. Yeah. So, um, and this is kind of old style for loops. So for I in range, and don't worry what this means, but you're like, with the old for loops, a lot of times you're setting a variable to 0, and then you're coming in here um, and you're saying, okay, for every item that you find that matches this condition, if the string is upper, then count it, like take this, which starts at 0, and just add 1. And what I did was I used this list comprehension, and I have quite a bit about list comprehensions in here. Um, let's see. List comprehension. So I break down like the structure. So they're so beautiful because it's one line. Like you're taking these like multiple line for loops and making it one line. And so you're saying like ignore this. You're saying for each item in an iterable, and commonly you'll like this here can be called anything, but typically what you'll see is like if the variable is called words, then they'll like most people will use this as word. So it'll be like for word in words, or for value in values, for um, player in players, so that's my favorite format. But some people will say like for I in B, which isn't it's not very intuitive, but you'll see a lot of older, kind of more arrogant programmers do that, because if their code is harder to understand, then that makes them irreplaceable. But it's really good to make your variables intuitive so that when someone sees the variable, they're like, oh, okay. Same with function names, like a lot of these will have like really obscure function names. And I'm like, my function name will be convert F to uh, um, like convert Fahrenheit to I'm blank, Celsius. So like my variable name might be um, F to C or something like that. But anyway, getting back to this. So here's your for loop. So for each item in an iterable, and then you can add in conditionals. So a conditional is just like if the letter is capital, so for like let's say for this particular assignment, you are taking you're taking words, and that's the letters here. So let me type it in here. Python 3 cap count .py, and I'll just say ANNIE. So what this will do is it will count the number of capital letters. So I'm just going to hit enter. And don't worry about the second one. This is letting me know here there are 2 capital letters. And so how did I do this? Well, I generated a list first, and I really, really like this style. A lot of coders will break multiple steps. I mean, they'll shoehorn multiple steps into one variable, but then it makes for really complicated code. So first, what I do here, well, okay, so the name of the the name of the parameter or argument, is letters. So I say for each letter in letters, if letter dot is upper. So this is just a Boolean value, is it an uppercase? Yes or no. For each time it resolves to true, return a 1. And so if I just print capital letters, I'll just go in here and I'll say print capital letters. This is just going to be a list of ones. See? So then in the second step, because it just returned a 1 every time it came across the capital letter, and I have 2 capital letters, if I wanted to include more, I could come in here and wrap this in quotation marks. And now it returns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just a list of ones. But now I created a separate variable. And again, you know, here, it's a longer variable name. Like some people would just call this B or S or, you know, something like that. But then it's not intuitive. And I also include comments, like count the capital letters. Count of capital letters. I mean, I could have called this, you know, cap letters or something. But now I'm just saying, hey, take this list, capital letters, and sum it. But you can easily see what that's doing. So that's just taking a sum of 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, and that's 5. Now this one is a little trickier. So this is saying, for this one I did use I because it just got too complicated. So this is actually returning the index for each capital letter. So in this case, it's just for I in range, the length of the letters. So the length of letters, let's see what that value is. Print length letters. Now in this case, if I'm not including, oh wait, no. So I am include, I don't think I have to use an F string. Let me just see. Yeah, so I didn't need to use F strings here. I could have just, yeah. That was kind of silly. So because there's no other text in here, you only use F strings if you're combining text with variables. So I think I just got so used to doing that. Yeah. Okay. So you can see here the length of letters is 13. So this is saying for each item in 0 to 13, if the letter is an uppercase, return its index. So if I just say print indices, and I'm just going in here and printing all of the variables essentially. So here are the indices for all of my capital letters. So 0 is capital, 1, 2, 3 is capital, 4, 5, 6 is capital, 8, and then 12. And so then this sum of indices is just taking a sum of those values. So in the same way, we summed up all of the ones, which is just a hack for getting the count. Now we're summing up the indices. So oh shoot. Darn it. All right, so I am actually going to get rid of that. I think that's all I did. Yeah. Okay. And then um, our argv, I don't know what you call that. It references um, the argument, and then when you call the function, you reference the argument. All right. But you can see, like, these list comprehensions, this is just so much more elegant than like having all of this, like start setting a variable to 0 and then iterating on that variable. And anyway, so all right. Not gonna worry about that. Oh yeah, this was someone else's formula. And I think that's about it. Yeah, that's everything. So hopefully this will reduce your learning curve. What you'll want to do is just basically go in um, and replace like the argument. Um, yeah, like maybe call this num1, num2, num3, something like that. But I wouldn't worry about it too much.